Everybody else is muted, not you.
What's that blinking minute?
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
Doing okay.
It's Brian. How's it
It's
going?
nice to see your face.
How are you?
Hi,
Hi,
Melissa.
Nice to
Hi,
see you.
Melissa. Oh, she can't hear me.
Just tell her. Melissa, we're unable to get the camera to show Peter's face. Okay, I can hear you. It was a little muffled when you guys were trying to do it, but I can hear you. I think everybody else can too, I hope.
Yeah.
This technology. You should fire me. No, it's just technology. We want to
If
keep
you-
you, Laurel.
If you tap the screen, there should be a little menu that pops up at the bottom, and you may see a red camera. Try clicking that if you haven't already.
We should not fire you.
The
Peter,
microphone,
what kind of device are you on?
we're on a computer.
Well, it should be in your bottom left side of your screen.
Yes, I see the mute button. I see the start video button.
That's what you need. The start video button.
Every time we click it, it says the camera.
Beauty, who's that guest board member behind you there?
That's Opal.
Opal, what a cutie. Hi,
She
Opal.
is. She may jump down and start kneading my stomach in the middle of all this.
Well, that's a visual that I prefer not to see, but thanks for the heads up.
Yes.
I think it's going to be out of range of the camera.
Good. Let's keep it that way.
Well, I'm wearing clothing, you know. It's just you get this.
You are just a wealth of information this evening, Judith.
He just doesn't want to see all that violence.
Right.
You gonna play some bass for us?
I'm gonna tune it for you. Oh
Did
yeah.
you change your hairstyle since the last time I saw you?
Oh yeah. A change. It's a good word for it. Yeah, it got really hot, and I decided it was time
And try again.
to toy around with it. I was worried I'd have a weird shaped head, but I think it worked out.
Head looks good. Your head looks good. So
Thank
what does
you.
your better
I
half
appreciate it.
think of all this?
Oh, she was fine with it. She liked it a lot. My hair is a mess. Not a lot of it, and what was left wasn't agreeable.
Mhm. And who's that next to you?
This is Ruby, the
Hi,
dog.
Ruby. Oh, what
She's
a
missing-
fun man.
She's missing her brother right now. He's at the vet.
Is she a rescue? Is she a what is she?
She's a mix. Yeah, we got her at the SPCA when she was a puppy, and we got Rocky from don't think too highly of me. We got Rocky from a special needs rescue, but it turned out he didn't have any special needs. They were just using it. They were just using it to vet people, I guess. And so we got this really, really sweet, really mellow puppy. And he's about 5 months now, and he's bigger than she is. So we think he's going to be 102 pounds.
God. This
Yeah.
one came from the transfer station.
Oh, really?
Early?
I didn't know.
The
it was-
transfer station.
The
That's a
transfer station has a shelter.
I found
oh
my
over in
transfer
Sar.
too.
Yeah.
Saugerty.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you both.
Well, Melissa, can you hear me?
I can hear you, and we have everybody here on the planning board.
Okay. Well, it is 7 o'clock. So I see we have a quorum. I see a lot of members there. So I'd like to call to order the regular Zoom meeting of the Woodstock Planning Board of July 2nd, 2020. We have two items on the agenda. One is Tannery Brook Real Estate, or Waterfall Way as we knew it, and the other is the Woodstock Public Library District. So, Melissa, do you have any updates to the agenda?
I don't, just, you guys got
Okay.
it before.
We have the two sets of minutes from January 2nd and January 16th. If everybody's in agreement, we could accept them.
So moved.
Okay.
Agreement.
So, on to the Tannery Brook Real Estate, Waterfall Way. They are asking to have another year, extend their special use permit for another year, so they can work on the final stage. It seems perfectly fine to me. They're doing a great job, and it seems I don't see any problem with extending them for another year. If everybody's in agreement, we could.
They've been good neighbors?
We think so.
We hope so. We're trying to be good neighbors.
I have a question. Stuart Lipton here. Right now, according to Teresa's letter, they're already extended through September of 2021. So is the proposal to extend them to September of 2022?
So we are planning to break ground on what we will consider phase 2, given your decision to grant us a phase 3, for 2 buildings, 2R and 3R. And then, we want to not bite off as more than we can chew. We want to build those 2 buildings, see how things are going, given the times that we're in. And then give us an extension maybe to September of 2022. All the while, we may end up doing it sooner. I just, we want to play it safe.
Any other questions from the board?
No, sir.
If not, Stuart, would you like to pass this resolution?
Okay, I'll make a motion to grant a further extension to the applicant under SGP 160457, SPR 170353A, WWP 16035, Tannery Brook Real Estate, to extend the permits through September of 2022.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
All in
And
favor?
appreciate your time.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Jesse,
very
I'll
good.
contact the building department next week with a memo, make it all formal, and we'll talk.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. And
Okay.
be safe out there.
All right,
Okay,
thank you,
Jesse,
folks.
keep up the good work.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
All right,
Bye-bye.
bye.
Okay, now we're going to move on to the Woodstock Public Library District. And as you have probably been notified, they want us to review their SEQR application. And I'm sure last week you all got a copy of their SEQR application. And they just asked us to comment on it. So let me say this about that. Site plan review is required when a building permit for certificate of occupancy in any district except for 1 family or 2-story or 2-family dwelling and related accessory or general agricultural uses. And the zoning enforcement officer shall have a site plan prepared and sent to the planning board for review. However, 26074C, excluded from site plan review, are town of Woodstock municipal uses. So the Woodstock Library is a quasi-government. They have their own tax base. They have their own board, and they are a separate entity. And as such, they can do their own site plan review. However, if we have been asked, the planning board has been asked to review their secret. I have looked at it, and my main point is on page 4B. Says, would the proposed action cause or result in alteration of or increase or decrease in size of or encroachment on any existing wetland, water body, shoreline, beach, or adjacent area? And they checked yes. Identify the wetland water body which you have affected by name, and they've named it as Tannery Brook, tributary of the Sawkill, water index number 14-171-14, class C1. So then if you go down to describe the proposed action, describe how the proposed action would affect the water body or wetland in terms of excavation, fill, placement of structures, or alteration of channels, banks, or shorelines. Indicate extent of activities, alterations, or additions in square feet or acres. And they wrote construction of a book storage sales building and expansion of existing parking stalls within 50 feet of the bed and banks of the protected stream. So that stream has a 40-foot buffer, and the library has a topo map was made for them showing the top of the bank, and 40 feet buffer takes you to the edge of the pavement of the library lane. There was once an old laundromat there, which has been removed, and that entire laundromat was within the buffer. So the exception is that within that buffer, a building of not more than 80 square feet can be placed as like, in other words, like a Brad's barn or something, 80 square feet can be placed there, but it cannot be more than 50% into the buffer. In other words, 20 feet from the stream. So according to what they're asking for, it would require going to the planning board for a wetlands and watercourse permit. And that's what I see in their secret. Now, I'll turn it over to anybody else on the board who might see other issues on their secret.
Peter, this is Stuart Lipkin. I just have a question because you've reached the conclusion that the library board can do their own site plan review. And can you tell me the section again that you relied on? Well,
for the excluded from site plan review are town of Woodstock municipal uses. That's C.
Of what section are you talking about?
We are now in 26074. Site plan review and approval when required.
Because isn't it true that the library is a separate entity from the town of Woodstock per se?
Yes, but we went through this before, and I mean, legally, I don't know that there's a straight answer, but basically what they're saying, because they have their own tax base and they therefore have their own board, that they are a municipal entity.
But aren't they separate from the town government? The town is a separate body corporate from the library, which has its own governing structure, its own decision makers, and its own ability to raise funds. They're not a subdivision of the town. Aren't they a separate entity chartered by the state? I mean, this is a significant threshold question. I wonder if we ought to have an opinion of the planning board council before we make that pronouncement, or unless you've already had it or you've had it in a prior case. I'm relatively new to the board, but it seems to me that's an important question that we ought to have answered.
Yes, Stuart, you're absolutely right. You know, and the excluded are, it does say the town of Woodstock Municipal. And technically, if the library is a separate entity and is exempt the same way, is a legal question. I really don't know.
So I'm suggesting, Peter, just my own view, that perhaps we ought to have a clarification from the planning board's attorney on that particular question before we summarily decide that they can do their own site plan review, because site plan review is obviously of great importance and it's something we do all the time, and we can examine any number of pertinent aspects of the project regardless of who conducts the environmental impact. So I would want to have that question answered, and I don't think it would be a difficult one for council to give us the answer.
Well, Stuart,
Excuse
I
me.
agree with you. You know, we can poll the board. And John?
We've got somebody on who is not a board member, who is not muted. It's P. Van Cott, whoever that is. It's very disturbing.
John, were you trying to say something? John's muted. I can't hear him.
Melissa, can you unmute John, please?
I can't. Ashley's running the
Unmute
meeting.
himself. He muted him.
Oh, he needs to unmute himself.
Can you hold up a sign so he can see it? No, I don't
Are you,
know.
wait a minute, am I on now?
Yes, now I can hear you, John.
Thank you. Okay. I think there's a lot of precedent. Been many times when there's been different districts within townships that have done and requested seeker. And the request would be from this planning board to the New York State DEC to take over the seeker process. We have experience doing seeker. The board of the library does not.
John, can you hear me? This is Stuart.
Yes, now I can.
Okay, the point I was addressing, I wasn't getting to secret yet. Peter had made an initial comment that he felt that the library board could do their own site plan review. And I'm questioning whether that is correct or not as a matter of the law. And that's what I was addressing.
Excuse me, but I don't think we have enough time left to challenge the decision if the library board chooses to do its own seeker.
But
I
John,
think there's a time limit on our ability to request that the DEC make the decision on whether or not it should be the town of Woodstock Planning Board or the library.
but what I was addressing was not secret as to who's going to be the lead agency, but whether who does the site plan review. Peter opened up the meeting talking about site plan review, which is different
I
from.
understand,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think that the correct order here is horse and then cart.
There were
Peter?
two.
Judith?
There are two outside parties who are both trying to comment. As a point of order, we ought to decide how we're going to deal with those, because one of them is the library council. I believe the other is on the library board. Where did Peter go?
I'm here, and I just want to remind everyone that this is a Woodstock Planning Board meeting, and really, it's only the planning board members who can have input on this question right now. I understand what Stuart's bringing up, and before us really is the review of the seeker, and not really the question of who does the site plan review. So I was just commenting on the seeker part of it. I really as Stuart pointed out, without counsel, I couldn't tell you if the library is exempt from site plan review or not.
This is Brian. 1 point and a question, please. You're right, this is not a public hearing meeting, so feedback only and discussion with the planning or from the planning board. How did this get on our agenda in the first place? Can somebody educate me the backstory on this?
The library, in filling out the secret, has properly reached out for review of the secret by at least the planning board. I think maybe some others are reviewing it, but at least the planning board is to review their secret. And that's basically what I was referring to. But, you know, Stuart brought up a point which I think John's right. We don't have much time because we had 30 days from last month. So there's only like 10 days left to respond.
I think, yes, I have to send it back. I think I wrote down July 16th. So yes, you're right.
But again, this is Stuart. Didn't the library give notice of their intention to appoint themselves or designate themselves as the lead agency to conduct the environmental review? And then doesn't that notice give us the right to weigh in and assert whether we want to serve as lead agency? And then if there's a controversy, it can be sent to the DEC commissioner to decide. And that's what I understand is on our agenda. They're telling us that they intend to be the lead agency for the environmental review. I suppose it was my understanding that what we're supposed to consider tonight is whether we want to object to their being, the library board being their own lead agency, as opposed to us stepping in and being the lead agency if we want to do that.
That's my understanding too.
As mine.
Is that loud enough?
Would you put on your phones?
No, doesn't matter.
Bob, you have to mute your microphone, please. I don't know who Bob is, but I'm hearing stuff in his house.
I muted it.
So my question to the board then is, how does the board feel about having the library be their own lead agency?
If I may, and this is a point of view, it just strikes me that everything with the library is complicated. I'm hearing from John that the clock is ticking, but I'm hearing from Stuart that we need and we should have counsel on this, because there's only one lawyer on this board. And what concerns me is making a bad decision without counsel if we need counsel. Because I do not know. I'll mute.
John?
I do not think we need counsel at this point in time. And I think that the board would be wise in, at this point, throwing it to the DEC commissioner and saying that we, as a planning board, have far more experience doing secrets and site plan reviews than the library board does. The library board has been dealing with other issues for years. They are not experienced in this particular area. And I feel that we would be remiss if we did not request for us to be the lead agency.
I don't know if you can see hands, Peter, can you?
I can see some of our members, yep. I can see your hand.
Okay, well, let me put my 2 cents in here. This is a no-win. If the library does their own, it's going to be attacked from every quarter as being not objective. I think we're capable of being objective, but I don't know if I want the grief. Leaving it to the DEC to decide would at least take it out of the hands of the political situation.
Precisely.
That's true. That's very, very true. Um, Stuart, yes?
Unmute yourself, Stuart.
Okay, can you hear me? So it's relevant to me whether, if the library serves as its own, as the lead agency, does the site plan still come back to us for review? Because if it does,
Good question.
we will have a shot then at the full panoply of issues that we always look at for the interests of good planning for the town. That's something I would like to know. And that's why when Peter made the comment at the beginning, you know, that they can be their own site plan review, I question that. So that's an important
Peter?
question.
Yes? Yes, John?
I think Judith's point is on the money. The library's in a difficult position here. They will be attacked if they do this on their own. Absolutely. Part of this is trying to make it as fair as possible for both parties. And I think the only way to do that at this point in time is for us to not let that 8-day time clock run out, immediately go to the DEC commissioner and request that the DEC commissioner choose who should the lead agency be.
All right, board, can we have a vote on that?
Aye.
Somebody make a motion.
Stuart, you're still muted.
Brian's muted, but he's holding something up I can't read.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
You're
All right.
on, Stuart.
Well, okay. Before we take any formal vote on this, if we want to send it to commissioner, are we required to indicate to them that we are looking to serve as a lead agency and ask him to decide? Do we have to express that intent rather than just saying you decide?
I
Do we have
believe,
yeah. Okay, I'll
Yes,
mute again.
John?
I believe so. Otherwise, what would we be asking him?
Right.
Oh. Ashley, if you can hear me, can you unmute Brian Normoyle?
Brian wants to be unmuted.
I asked him to unmute. I can't mute when you guys unmute yourself. When you guys mute yourselves, you have to unmute.
I did unmute. I've done that before, but the host muted me.
I hear you, Brian.
I know you do now because now the host has unmuted me.
I mean, literally, I hear you.
You know, it cuts you off, guys, too. It tries to only listen to one person at a time.
So where are we? I think that board members should be entitled to weigh in on this before we put it up to a formal motion. Are there any other board members that want to question or discuss this?
Yeah, I do. So take me through the sequence of what happens next if we vote yes on this. And then somebody take me down the sequence if we vote no.
Well, ask John, he's got the most experience in this.
Well, a no vote simply leaves it in the hands of the library, and the library will be the lead agency and do the whole process, and we will not be involved at all.
In terms of the environmental assessment?
Yes.
So they're liable then for their actions, so to speak, and they govern themselves. So am I understanding that correctly?
That was my understanding, that because they're a quasi-government agency, they govern themselves. And that the planning board, you know, they didn't have to go before the planning board, but I don't know that that's law or correct.
Again, I think you have to distinguish between self-governance for operating of the library and so on, or deciding whether to fund a particular project or sponsor a particular project, and whether they're obligated to whether a site plan has to come before us for a project that they're funding. And I think where we are now in terms of the EAF, the environmental assessment form, my limited understanding is that the
secret law allows a sponsor of the project, such as the library board or a planning board or other governmental body, to serve as a lead agency. So they're putting themselves up as a lead agency, and we have a right to say, well, we think we should be appointed as a lead agency. And if there's a dispute like that, then it gets shipped to the DEC commissioner, the state DEC commissioner, to make a ruling. And he has certain factors that he follows. So I mean, I think that's where we're at. And so we keep it focused on the environmental, on who's going to be the lead agency. That's really the question. Do we want to take a position that we should be the lead agency rather than the library board? And then if we do, then we would have to make that known to the library board and to the commissioner and say we need a ruling on it. I think that's where we're at.
Well,
anyone want to
go
weigh
ahead,
in?
Judy.
I'm getting distracted because Connor wants to speak and he's muted, and I'm not able to get Ashley's attention by chat.
Connor, can you hear us?
Now he's open. Now he's on.
Connor?
Hi, that was insane, for one thing. All right, I think we can all regulate ourselves well enough. I've been trying to chime in for like the last 15 minutes. All right, this host muting thing, like, let's turn that off. Anyone who cannot control themselves and remain unmuted until they are called on should be ejected from the meeting. Let's try that. All right. For one thing, I appreciate the debate and the discussion that we're all having. I do support the idea of turning it over to the DEC. Now, I am seeing chats. I don't know if everyone else is seeing chats here, where there are people who would like to add a little bit of clarity to that. And while I don't think we have to, give them a ton of time, I think, there is clarity that could be added to this by maybe some of these members of the library board. So if they want to just express their intent and not make it a debate and a referendum on our decision, absent of that, I do support sending it to the DEC. I don't think we should be the agency to make the decision on whether or not we are lead agency, but I do agree that we probably should be lead agency. So with that being said, I would like to, if there's someone on the board who feels that we are misconstruing what they're on the library board, that is misconstruing what they are attempting to do here. I know I saw someone saying they want to be lead agency, and I saw Jeff saying that he wants to just add a little clarity. I don't see why we don't let them speak for a couple of minutes. We're all here.
Up to the chair.
All right, Jeff, you want to add a thought here?
Yeah, so I want to clarify a couple of things that have been confused here. First of all, I don't know the plan that says we're intending to build the book barn. That's not a current plan. That plan is no longer in effect. We're not going to build on the old laundromat facility. There's no construction there. There's nothing that's going to be there. We're not going to affect the stream in any way. That is no longer the case. We looked at that for a while, and it's no longer the case. That's the first thing I want to clarify. Secondly, we have absolutely every intention of putting the plan through the planning board to get your expertise, your knowledge, and your ability to help us develop the plan and help us approve the plan. This is not about avoiding the planning board. It's about making sure that we work together with the planning board to make sure that everyone has a voice and that voice is heard with this construction. The last piece is lead agency. This is about lead agency. The library has the right to be the lead agency, as does the planning board. They both have the right to be the lead agency. As the library, we've started the lead agency, we've started the secret project, we've started the process. We've hired consultants dealing with archaeology, with, I believe, wetlands. Howard can correct me if I'm wrong, and with historical value. We've started that process already. Thank you. We intend to continue that process. We intend to do the process completely and thoroughly because we live in Woodstock and we want the best thing for Woodstock too. If the town board, if the planning board decides that they want to be a lead agency, it's going to cause a conflict. That conflict then gets resolved, I think as Stuart said, through the DEC process. That process could take months. During that time, we'll be debating back and forth between who should be lead agency, whether it's the library or the planning board. We feel it should be the library because we know what we're building, we know what we're doing, we're responsible, we're going to rely on the expertise of the planning board for the planning process. We're going to rely on professional expertise we're paying for to make sure that we do everything right. So don't worry about us screwing up the plan, just screwing up the secret. We're going to do it right. That's our goal, that's our process. We're asking you to let us be lead agency because of timing. You know, do we want to continue this process for months of back and forth? You know, we want to get this on the November ballot, let the town people vote on whether we're going to build this library or not. And frankly, if we go through this lead agency discussion between us, between the library and the planning board, it's not going to be able to be on the November ballot. It's going to be another year plus before we can actually decide what we're going to do with the library.
All right. Jeffrey, I'd like to point out, though, that you just said that you were not planning to build anything on the old laundromat site, but your
Correct.
application to the SEQR says that you plan to put a construction of book storage and sales building there.
Some of that's an incorrect application. Dorothea knows the history of that. I don't.
Well, this is what we were asked to review. This
I
application.
understand that. It's incorrect.
Somehow you were sent the wrong application. That was an earlier one. There was a revised one. The board had decided not to build on that site. And I don't know why the different agencies consulted in this were sent an earlier version. But
Okay,
that's a
because
mistake.
it's not only in your SEQR, it's in your site plan itself. It shows a building there.
No, those are
Okay.
you know, our building chair, Howard Kagan, could comment on that, but those are earlier versions. I don't know.
Okay, I think I get the feeling from the board that we would like to go send it to the DEC. Is that, I agree. I think we need to do it fast and timely, and that's our option.
It also hasn't been my experience that it takes months to hear back from the DEC. I mean, maybe I don't see this as being so complicated that they would need that much time to make a determination. I certainly don't think any of us intend to fight you on it, but I think it's something that should be asked.
Can we get from DEC a sense of how fast they could turn it around?
I think it's irrelevant, don't you?
Well,
It's relevant to the library as far as our plans going forward. If we need to get a bond vote on November, we can't do it if it takes so long.
How many years?
It's relevant.
Excuse me, our legal counsel, who's very experienced with SEQR, would like to speak. Paul Van Cott, if that's possible.
Chairman's call.
I'm losing audio here. Is anyone else losing audio?
no.
No.
Peter, can Paul speak?
He's on.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
I'm a little concerned about the documents that you're looking at.
It sounds
Very
like,
muffled.
okay, if we can interrupt, yeah, your connection is pretty terrible. You're not audible.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
No.
No better.
Can you put it in the chat, Paul?
Okay. I will. Let me do that. I'll do that, yes.
Impossible, Paul.
I do know that one thing that Paul has said to us, he's worked for New York State for many years and worked for the DEC. And he said that they usually decide which agency has more skin in the game. And that because the library, we're responsible for building this and paying for it, and we'll have the liability if there are any issues. And we came to you tonight because we'd like to have your input in terms of the environmental impact. You know, the town supervisor had asked the planning board and the town board early on if they wanted to be lead agency, and they were told, and they said they weren't interested. So he gave us permission to go ahead.
All right. Here's the situation. we apparently don't even have the right secret document in front of us. And we have 10 days left to make a decision. So I see no other choice but to get it to the DEC.
Can I, excuse me, Peter, but can I ask, if we don't even have the right documents in front of us, does that nullify the time frame? Because I mean, if we haven't seen the proper documents, how are we expected to rush that decision? I mean, we can forward it to DEC just on its face, the question about lead agency, while they prepare the documents we need that we want to see. Either way, we want to support. Either way, we want to help. But it seems like, what are we counting down from if we have the wrong documents in the first place?
Good point. John, what's your...
Well, there was just a text from the council saying that we're supposed to have these documents already. But Melissa, do we have the correct documents?
No. The only document I got was the legal one that you guys received.
Which is incorrect.
The date of notice from June 16th?
To designate the secret lead agency. That's what I got.
Yeah, from June 16th?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're all looking at. So, so I mean, again, it's not just to be obstructionist or anything like that, but we don't have the right documents. There's this, artificial doomsday clock counting down, and we haven't even seen the proper paperwork. So it seems like a good opportunity for us to ask this question while you guys get your ducks in a row and we follow suit. I'm sure we'll honor whatever, excuse me, I'm sure we'll honor whatever the DEC says, and I don't see why we can't be cooperative and move this forward in the meantime.
All right.
I have another point I'd like to raise. Can you hear me? This is Stuart Lipkin.
Yes.
Mr. Collins and some other folks have mentioned a couple of times the library's strong desire to get a bond issue on the ballot for the voters this coming November, which is only a couple of months away. I'm not sure what the relevance of that desire is to the planning board's responsibility to discharge its functions. And also, in my experience, during our site plan reviews, there are often times where there are aspects of the construction plan or contemplated project that get changed during the planning process to take account of sound planning. And sometimes that even increases cost or changes the cost factors to the applicant. So I'm wondering how prudent it is to push a bond issue at this point when there hasn't even been a site plan review initiated. Does anyone have a comment on that?
That's sort of
point.
Yeah.
I believe that was planned to happen before the bond vote.
Planned by whom?
The library was going to bring the site plan review to the planning board.
But we don't have a site plan filed. We don't have any review process initiated.
Right. It's not ready yet. We're still working on that document to get to you. We're asking now just for secret leadership. We're not asking for planning review right now.
Right, but Mr. Collins, your argument is that you want to get this before the voters in November to raise money from the tax base to fund this project when you haven't even started the site plan review process. I mean, to borrow a phrase from John LaValle, isn't that putting the cart before the horse? Because very often, again, these projects change in one aspect or another and costs can go up. And it seems, why wouldn't you want to know that before you ask the voters to approve or disapprove something? I mean, to me, I don't know how prudent that is, but that's only my own view. But I'm questioning it because you have brought up the bond vote a number of times to recruit us to move forward on this when I don't know that it's prudent to do so yet.
Again, the question before the board is whether or not you want to be lead agency for secret. That's the only question.
I understand that.
That's the question, not whether we vote in November or not. I was trying to make a point that by delaying this process, it's making it more difficult for the library, making it more expensive for taxpayers.
But by rushing it, by rushing it, to a vote quickly before you even start the site plan, you may be missing factors that people need to know about.
Well,
This is Brian. Go ahead, finish.
Go ahead, Brian.
If I may, I mean, I am echoing Stuart's concerns. If this were any other, situation besides the library, we wouldn't even be entertaining this. You don't have the right paperwork in. Come back when you do. Because it's such a emotionally fraught issue, we're trying to figure out a way, in my opinion, my point of view, to solve yet another problem that from the library, because the clock is ticking. And, I don't have a lot of confidence from what I've seen. And I apologize, if that doesn't jive with what everybody wants, but.
Well, the correct way to really do this is to bring in our planner and have our planner put together a memo so that we know where everything stands. That's the way we normally do things.
Mr. Planner.
But that being said, I mean, if we just want to look at the question that's on the table tonight, I think it sounds like there is pretty universal acceptance from the board that we want to forward that question to the DEC, and however long that takes, there's other steps that need to be taken by the library committee, by the board, to bring their project, the paperwork, everything up to speed. And I certainly don't mean to sound pejorative, but I definitely would echo Brian, and Stuart, we all say our prerogative is to get this done right. We want to be supportive and helpful, and I'm sure we can do that while these questions are being answered. But, whether, and again, I know the question is not whether or not, November is up in the air, but, this has been wanting to get done for a while, and, let's not do it in a hurry. Let's not do it in a mess. I'm not saying we have to drag our feet about it, but we don't have anything to even look at and consider at this point. So let's ask the questions. Let's move things forward every way that we can. And right now we need the committee, we need the library board to resubmit the proper paperwork. We need to send the question to the DEC and not really, as a planning board, concern ourselves with the politics of it, just with the proper execution and the thoughtful consideration of the space.
That's true. Judith has her hand up.
Yeah, I want to make an observation. I think that the copy that Melissa sent us was the right one. And I think that John sent us an earlier one in the last couple of days. And I've been very confused about what was what. I actually went through both of them looking at the differences. But I now can't find the later one, but I think that was the one that Dorothea is referring to.
Yeah,
The one
Judith,
that Melissa sent us.
Judith, I'm sorry for that confusion, but I think we cleared it up 5 minutes before the meeting tonight, you and I, by putting our heads together. But you're right.
So let me take this back to the board. If the issue before us.
Is there a correct version of the secret that was sent to you?
Yeah.
What?
Can you hear me now?
I'm confused whether there was a correct version that was sent.
Yes, there was.
So
what is the date on that?
June 16th.
June something. The signature.
Who is the John who sent something from April?
Mr. Ludwig.
Well, oh, come on. I'm sorry.
This is
I know. I'm just pointing out that is where it got into my email flow.
Okay, so you guys have been discussing something that is not correct. The library submitted a correct thing that does not involve building on the laundromat property. And you've spent this whole meeting under
that's not really true, Dorothea. The other issues are still real. But it certainly complicated things.
But people were questioning our competence, saying that we had sent out the wrong paperwork.
Fair enough.
Not send out the wrong paperwork, and I take that very seriously.
Exactly. And so who
Mr.
did
Ludwig is
send
not
you-
on the library board. He is not an official transmitter of library documents.
Okay,
And
The fact that you
that's
consider them
outrageous.
is really, because he's an opponent of whatever we want to get done here.
okay, I want to put this back to the board, and just the board. It's on our agenda tonight to make the decision of reviewing the secret. And it sounds like the option that John has mentioned and that is the rest of the board seems to agree with is one of our options is to let the DEC do that. And so I think we have to make a decision now if the time frame is correct, that there's only 10 days left. We won't have another meeting. We only have this meeting to make this decision.
So here, I have one question before we do that. Can we proceed to bring our planner into this in the meantime, regardless of whether or not we hear back right away from the DEC? Is that something we can make a motion on so that we can move forward with the appropriate plan that was submitted?
Absolutely, Connor, but the thing is that the library would have to put a retainer down for our planner.
And so now let me kick it back for 1 second then, because when we look at projects of this scope, I'm talking now to the library board, that is where we start. And it would definitely, I think, behoove us to retain Matt and get this going in that regard. Is that something that you guys could find agreeable? So, because, you know, his input, you know, is very, very important to us.
As we've said earlier, we 100% want the planning board to be part of the planning process. That's not an issue. It's not a question. We are doing that. Legally, as was said earlier, we don't need to do that. We want to do that because it's the right thing to do. Okay? And it's the right thing to involve the town and to involve the planning board in our building the building. That's what we want to do.
So my question, Jeff, my specific question is, you know, I'm not sure what the specific amount is, but do you guys need to have a meeting, or do you think it would be agreeable so that we can move forward in this meeting tonight? Let's make some hay here, and retain Matt so that we can come back to you as we are asking this question of the DEC, not afterward, and you will get our input regardless of who takes over as lead agency.
I can only say in theory, yes. I can't make a promise because it's a money proposal that the board has to vote on. But
if we were to vote to do so and we ask you for a retainer, what will happen after that is you will take it to the board, you'll ask for a yay or a nay, and hopefully we'll get a bunch of yays and we can proceed, and this is all going to keep rolling no matter who gets to wear the crown.
Yeah, the only question then is if there's a challenge on the seeker, does that delay things? That's our biggest concern. Not the planning, It's a secret challenge. That's our biggest concern.
I have a question, if I may. Connor? This is Stuart here. Mr. Collins or anyone else, is it the library's intention to present a site plan to the planning board for a site plan review process?
Yes, absolutely.
And does the library consider itself required to do that?
Legally, no, but morally, yes. I mean, I'm quoting law. Legally, no. Morally, yes. It's the right thing to do. We've tried to do it the other way before in this town, and it's the wrong thing. We need to go through your guys' process. We want to do your process. We want to involve you guys. That's the truth.
Right. Again, my own view is I'm not sure that you're not required to do that. I think you may be required.
I've heard that from my lawyers. I'm not a lawyer myself, so that's what I've heard.
Okay. I appreciate your direct response to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Peter, I think we're at the point now where I'm prepared to make a motion for the planning board to resolve to respond to the library's notice of intention to designate itself as lead agency with our own expression that we want to be the lead agency, and also to authorize the clerk of the planning board to issue a notification to the DEC commissioner that there's a dispute about this and to ask for a ruling.
Second.
John,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Judith?
No, I was,
Oh, it's an aye.
Anyone opposed on the board?
All right.
Okay,
And now, as far as retaining Matt for either the secret review or even the site plan review in the future, should we make a motion for that, or should we allow them to take that back to their table? I mean, I imagine.
Need to know what the
I don't know that. I don't know that this would be a flat fee or something like that, or how that works.
Well, Connor, I think we should do what we normally do when we get a case like this, is to refer it to a planner, our planner. That's the standard procedure.
But Peter, don't they have to make application for site plan review first, and then we notify them of what our requirements are for a planner and an escrow and so on?
Exactly. They need to prepare that documentation and get it available to the planner.
All right.
Well, we're working on the documentation now. It's not ready yet. There's still design involved.
All right. Well, for whatever it's worth, Jeff, once that documentation is ready, I'll certainly be looking to help move that forward, and I think we're all trying to operate in good faith here. So, you know,
I understand that all of us are trying to do the right thing. I definitely get that, and I definitely appreciate the planning board doing what you believe is the right thing, and hopefully we can get this happening fast. My personal goal is to resolve this issue one way or the other with the library. It's just been going on for a long time here, and let's get done. And we'll do the process right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Stuart, is there a way you can get to Melissa what you just proposed in writing? So can you email her something, just what you did?
Sure. Today's Thursday. Melissa, are you working tomorrow? Or I could send you an email, something.
I can check my email. That's good.
Okay. I'll either email you tonight or tomorrow with my best recollection of what I just said. We'll be fine. Yeah.
Peter, I'll need you to sign the document before I mail it too, so we can meet to do that also next week.
Sure, no problem.
Can you do an electronic signature on a PDF?
I make Peter meet me to sign things.
Oh, you're tired.
Okay.
The mask on.
Thank you, library board. Thank you for your time.
All right. In unfinished business, we have a motion to approve credits for Judith for attending the Webner NYPF. So if we could do that, that would be good.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
One other issue. I'm sorry, what?
I'm recused.
Oh, okay.
It was very useful, and if you guys want to spend the time, particularly the newer people, reading the PowerPoint, even after all these years, I understand Seeker better than I did.
Good, yes. And one other point that Melissa brought up is that we have a workshop meeting coming up, and due to this COVID and Zooming, she suggested that we might take a course instead. But I see that there's also one available to us, which is, I think, the 16th, which is dealing with these things during a pandemic.
I'm planning to do that.
So we could do that for credit. Or if there's something the board would rather do at the workshop meeting, think about it, and we can discuss it via email. Brian? Oh, okay. John?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes, sounds great.
All right.
I'm going one way or the other. I'm taking it. So
yeah, me too.
I just asked that you guys send me an email with like an overview of the course, maybe like your certificate, and then we do this, we approve it at the board, and then I send it, so then you get official credits, and then you get your hours in. So that's great.
Melissa, can you hear me?
Yes.
Was this meeting recorded audio?
It's totally recorded, our faces, audio, everything.
Okay.
I get it next week, like mid next
Cheers, everybody.
Okay.
Cheers,
Well,
world.
thank you all for
Cheers, Connor.
working through this difficult issue, but we did. Just one other note to keep in mind during this pandemic thing, when we use email with each other, we have to be careful not to discuss projects that are in front of us via email. Because that, you know, if there's three of us going back and forth, then
It's technically a meeting, right?
yeah. So I don't know, Stuart, you might know better than that, but I don't know how much we can talk about things through email of cases in front of us, you know, under the open meetings law.
It's a good point.
I'm not going to weigh in at this point.
Okay. Okay. All right, folks, ladies and gentlemen.
All right,
thank you
hang
very
on,
much.
before you close on me. Next meeting is July 16th. I already have cell towers back with a second application. So I've scheduled them to come in front of us. That's what I have right now. So our next meeting is July 16th in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Back to you, Peter.
Okay. Well, again, thank you all for working through this issue.
And thank you for
I'll
letting the
entertain a
library-
motion to adjourn.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you. Stay healthy and stay well, everybody.
Have a good night.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.